Hey everybody, welcome to another 10-ton hammer, not 10-ton hammer, wow, cool. I am like behind 2 days. Another Revivalcast. I do too many of these things, I think that's the problem. Another Revivalcast, episode 32, kind of an interesting one today, I think. Gonna be doing something a little bit different here. We have double digs, so let me get that. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We had 2 digs, so which I'm sure he probably has enough to say today to double up on today's show. But yeah, the episode today. Let me tell you why. It is that's kind of going to be like a little bit more the back half of the show, but it will be kind of the majority of the show. But yeah, we're going to talk kind of about a little bit of a theme in the forums that we've noticed, and kind of answer some things, but not really. We're hoping more it'll ask more questions than provide answers. So that's kind of the hope today. And then yeah, of course, we're going to cover Developer Blog 52, and as what comes with that is the brand new decoration tool. So yeah, we'll dive into that. I'll go ahead and pass it over to my fellow co-hosts. For the people that may be in here and not know you guys, you can introduce yourselves a little bit. I'm Velix, write for 10-ton hammer, and yeah, here at Revivalcast, part of the forums. I'm finally in the IRC chat, got that figured out. It is a little bit tricky to get, but once you get it, it's totally worth it. A lot of cool discussion going on in there, so if you guys have our founders and you want to participate there, I highly advise going through the task of getting IRC going. But Selkite, go ahead, take it off and talk a little bit about yourself for those who might not know you.
Hi, I'm Selkite. I wasn't here last week. I was busy. I'm pretending to do a NaNoWriMo thing, a little tiny writing project, but I'm back, and I'm glad to have you all here. We had some cool stuff going on this week, namely a massive preview of the Revival house customization tool, which was super cool. Kedron, the lead producer on the game and the creative director, or excuse me, he's just the creative director, put a video on the official Revival YouTube page of that, so we're going to be talking all about that today. And I'm just a dude, I read stuff, I sit in IRC, and I like to talk about this game because it's very stimulating. So by all means, digs continue on the hype train, because we are on a train. A very slow, long train.
I am an avid RPG fan, old school, started with D&D way back in the day. And I'm into RPGs mostly for the story and the characters, the lives of the characters, story acting, character acting, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really into Revival and EverQuest Next. If EverQuest Next ever starts opening up their development to us some more, just to look forward to non-player characters have more in-depth lives, and I'm usually in the forums. The forums this week really had me going. I think I might not jump out the way I was thinking I would. IRC is pretty interesting. I finally got back into IRC. It's a bit of a pain logging in every day, but just the process of logging in. But I paid $5 for the client that I have to not kick me out. So now I'm just in whenever I don't have to log back in. And it's a lot of fun in both places. We get a lot of information in both places too from the devs, because the devs are constantly in both places. And I don't know how they actually work and answer all the questions that they answer in IRC and the forums.
Yeah,
they do it.
I totally agree. I have no idea how they are in like 10 places at once. Like they're working on game systems having internal discussions while simultaneously being in the IRC and on the forums and everywhere. And I don't know. It's magic. It's dark magic, which is probably means they're pretty mad based on Revival's intended mechanics of magic. So whatever they're using, they're insanely mad because of it. The elder gods are blessing them and cursing them. So, anyways.
Well, it takes a certain madness to come up with the ideas anyway, right? To get started on something as ambitious as Revival.
Yes. So yeah, developer blog 52. There wasn't a whole lot in it other than just kind of announcing something pretty exciting that a lot of people have been waiting for, is the house decorating tools, which is pretty cool because before now we've had the ability to log into our homes, kind of check out what they look like, but not able to really use them in any way. And I think what just came out now, it may not seem like too much, but if you think about it, it's already offering like at least a quarter of what Landmark did for us after for a while. I mean, you've got the ability to have a bunch of props, move them around, kind of decorate an entire house, and at least check out your own place and get a feel for what something is cool, redecorate things and stuff like that. There's no ability to interact with other people yet. That'll be coming. I'm guessing what they were saying is they wanted to get that in. They have the architecture for it, is what we heard before they released the initial first thing. They just have to get a few things ironed down. So we'll see if that sneaks in somewhere. By
before the new year.
Well, stage 2.
Let's say before the new year.
I don't know if it'll make it that early, but I think that we might see it at some point in stage 2 or stage 3 for sure. So we'll see. We'll see where they can squeeze that in. But yeah, definitely, I think it offers a lot of stuff. And just talking personally, experience with Landmark, I feel like the decoration tool operates really similarly. Obviously, different keyboard shortcuts, but the concepts are the same, which I was kind of talking to Sale and Diggs a little bit before the show. It's not anything like blockbuster different for anybody that's played Landmark or EverQuest 2's system, their house decorating. It's kind of this movement of these games kind of moving towards how developers actually manipulate props and objects in their world creation that they do, behind the scenes that we don't see. So it's just kind of a universal thing, and it has some cool, unique features, though. I really like the ability that you can move something and keep all the props attached to it. It'll be cool, if a grouping system ever comes up where you can just lock things to a group, where we can do our own custom groups. That would be nice, but of course, an extra luxury. I would much rather see them push forward into further things than getting hung up on, perfecting the decoration tools. So, which is kind of, what I feel some other games have suffered by just focusing on, hey, let's just make this all perfect, and not push forward with getting the fuller game system going. So, excited to see them move forward now that they've got this decorating tool and stuff like that. So, I'll pass it over to Diggs first. What did you what do you take away from the decorating tool and the developer blog they hit so far?
I liked the graphics of the user interface. Just looks nice and elegant. I actually think I like the interface more than I like Landmarks. The tools seem some of the graphics seem very similar, like the rotation wheel to rotate the props is very similar to Landmark. But I'm really just looking forward to seeing what props we're going to get. The way it works is that, we've paid $5 for a furniture set that the devs will have set up for us in our homes by hand, which is kind of crazy when I think about that, just the time spent doing that. But for that $5, the type of furniture we have is kind of scaled towards whatever level of housing that we've purchased. So the tenements are going to have poorer furniture than the upscale furniture in a manse or house. fascinating to me as furniture packages become purchasable as separate sets. I don't know if we're going to be able to purchase fancy furniture for our tenements. That seems kind of weird to me. So that's one of the things that I was thinking about as I was watching the video. What happens when, because I have a tenement, what happens if I'm able to purchase fancy schmancy, elegant furniture for that tenement? It's kind of weird. But that's what I'm most looking forward to, is just playing around with the props and seeing what we can do. What I like is that I think we're going to have sets that will fit our places, though, which is kind of different from Landmark. And we'll do that. So I was trying to build a house in Landmark, and I didn't want to use I don't know, I wanted to have a more robust decorated living room, and I got some ideas from looking at Revival, actually, how the pictures of what their rooms looked like, just the pictures of them. Everything just seems to fit very nicely. And then I got back to Landmark and was like, well, I don't have the rug that I want. I don't have enough bookshelves. I can't put the bed where I want it. It just looks like even once we get our hands on these props, we'll be able to do more in terms of making a cohesive theme in our rooms that we couldn't really do with even Landmark, even though they have tons of themes.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I guess to expand on the housing kits a little bit, or the upgrade kits, I forget precisely what they're called off the top of my head, but basically each, there's like an internal budget, right, that the designers use, and every single item across all housing types and all, I guess sets, if you will, has a value in that budget. So effectively, the designers who have been working on designing the kits are trying to get it so that approximately the same amount of budget is used for each house design, and that's partly what takes so long, because it's basically a lot of human judgment going on. Right? There's not really a good way to shortcut something like that, even with massive spreadsheet prowess, and so. It is all literally placed by hand, which is partly a testament to, I think, how much dedication the devs have to this thing. But yeah, I haven't mentioned it before now because it wasn't really applicable, I think. But I used to spend a little bit of time in Second Life, actually, and I don't know how familiar anyone is with Second Life, but Second Life has I'd say a fairly robust set of content creation tools, at least for 3D models and scripts. The interface isn't quite as polished, or at least not when I played, as the Revival interface is looking to be, but of course there are also quite a few more features in Second Life that aren't there in Revival. But nevertheless, Second Life in fact had a very similar parent-child grouping mechanism that we saw for the Revival editor, where you can take multiple, in this case of Second Life, it was primitives, right? You could spawn cubes, pyramids, spheres, etc., and you could pin them all together, right, in effectively local space, right? But I think this is a very viable and useful tool for more complex objects like we're getting in the Revival housing as well. Like when I saw that there was a local pin thing, I was like, dude, someone could totally do some poltergeist shit, right? Like they take their table, right, and they have a bunch of stuff scattered on it because they're a little bit messy and cluttered as a person, right? And then they secretly move it, right, to the other side of the house with everything mirrored or whatnot, or in perfect place, right? And then they have their friends come back and they RP as though a ghost moved it around, and look, my table moved exactly like this. I can't move this. I'm too weak. I would have knocked stuff over, but everything is exactly in place, and it's on the other side of the table, of the room, and stuff like that. And so I think there's a chance to do, or chair stacking, as one says, or other insane, hilarious things. Though actually, I'm hoping that all items will have centers of balance, and so that we actually could have things balanced, like on their corners of the chair, like you used to do in high school, where you'd have all the chairs in the room just like standing on one leg because of physics. I would very much like to do stuff like that, if only for the lulz, because why not, right? Always keep it light. But yeah, so I know there's some precedent for this, but I agree that the current implementation that we're seeing in Revival seems very polished, and pulls a lot of the good design choices from those features that we've seen in the past. That said, though, I know we also have a lot of people in chat who use, I guess, EQ2 design tools for decorating. So I wonder if some of those folks might want to speak up in chat, because I actually don't have any experience with that, and I don't know if either of you guys do either in any great way. So if we can get some perspective on that from the chat, we'll try to read some of that out. I think that would be really cool, because I know that there are a couple of people who do some really, really intense stuff there. It'd be great to have your thoughts on what this particular system looks like and feels like to you guys.
Yeah, I haven't personally progressed in EQ2 at all enough to pursue the in-game tools, but I have seen videos of it, because I've actually seen several just from friends linking and watching 5-10 minute videos of them doing crazy stuff with their house decorating or being in there. So it's pretty cool too. I was also looking into it a lot as EverQuest Next and Landmark were ramping up early back in the end of 2014, something like that, 2013, the end of 2013. So I was watching a lot, and it's pretty interesting stuff. That's why I say again, I see some similarities in the way that they're, or how all these kind of new modern, house decorating things in some of the games like Landmark, EQ2, obviously those are the same developer, so there should be some similarity there. But it's just this, it's what you see in editing, in editing engines. So yeah, I think that's a lot where it comes from. But yeah, anyways, to push on from the house decorating tool specifically, now that that's complete, I believe the developers are working towards getting the upgrade kits. Is the next thing in the for your room upgrades, specifically to do certain things for crafting and stuff. I think that's what's coming up next, and then once they get those kind of ironed out, they'll be moving on into the fully into the stage 2. So yeah, excited for that stuff. But anyways, in the end of the blog, the developers kind of pointed out a little bit into the end, one of the threads in what was it, the exact title of that one? I can't remember who started that one, because there's been a few. That's kind of why I'm drawing a blank here as to the specific one and who was the original poster in it. But I've noticed over the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks really, there's been a couple new people coming in. Demonche, we saw, he's here in chat, somebody that came in recently, and there's been others. Was Yeg new as well, relatively?
He's fairly new. Lord Jag is another one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we've seen a few new people coming in, and a lot of questions being asked. By when we first came in, early on, I think I came in around the 13th to maybe it was around developer blog 10 or something like that, when I stumbled across it, and it was a little enough information that you could kind of digest it all and get an idea where everything is. But now, we're here this is officially, by the way, 1 full year of developer communication with everybody being open here. 52 weeks of developer blogs, and developer blogs that are highlighting forum conversations, the forums are so loaded, it's almost like an insurmountable task to attempt to read all the relevant stuff. I think even if you follow the Revival Dev Tracker on Twitter, and keep track of just the developer posts in the forums, it's insane. Like you'll go mad trying to. Go ahead.
Even last night, I found a quote from Omla, I think it was, and it was only from actually maybe September 10th or so. But I was like, oh yeah, I've been looking for that. I need to quote that in a second, and I'm glad I found it because I was looking for that a while ago. I need to grab that. And then I finished up the post I was working on, and I went back to find it, and I was like, I cannot find it. I just saw this like a half hour ago, and already it's like trying to do a search, and I cannot find where it is because there's so much good stuff in there. I did finally find it in history, but
yeah, I think one of the things
easy to get lost.
One of the things they're going to have to add here soon is work on getting some sub forums, like actually splitting up some of these bigger ones into sub forums, because it's actually getting pretty it's pretty busy there now. Especially the common room thread is just I mean, that whole forum moves really fast. I have a hard time too. Like I'm almost like trying to create a different thread when we have like another Revivalcast coming up to tell you guys what's on, because I have to dig back for it or go to my favorites and look through that growing list. So yeah, but you know, it's getting big. But yeah, anyways, back to the original point. Lot of new people I'm noticing in, and quite a few threads about, you know, what is, you know, I have no idea about this game. You know, like, it looks, there's a lot, everything I'm reading I like. There's still so much more I have to learn, but I've got concerns, you know, and trying to dig and find the answers for those can be a task, you know. So one thing that's been great, you know, and this is all on the community, everybody just chiming in with, you know, answers to that, you know, and it's not those, you know, pushy, you need to be, you know, we love this game because of this, and it's the best game ever. You know, you get this polarizing toxicity in a lot of other forums, but here, you know, everybody's just honestly saying, hey, this is why, you know, here's a few links to information. And the developers are also really good about just, you know, touching on those threads and, you know, pointing people in the right direction. So, but anyways, the whole point of, you know, bringing this up is that with this whole theme, I wanted to kind of roundtable it here on Revivalcast and let kind of us talk about what, you know, why Revival? Why are we paying attention to the game? Why is it personally interesting to us? What are we hoping to get out of it? Just all these kinds of questions, you know, and it can go in any direction, but really just the question why Revival is, and I don't want all of us to answer this because, you know, to provide you guys with an answer. It's more of just, you know, kind of some thought-provoking, you know, making you maybe question why you're paying attention to it, what things you are interested in, what you want to get out of it, and maybe point you into some tighter groups, not really tighter groups I should say, but maybe point you into some more focused research in the forums. You know, maybe start creating topics on something you're interested in, and, you know, starting to get some people rallying around different subgroups, because I think really good communities, you know, aren't divided, but they are, you know, they do have like strong rallying points of different groups that, you know, are rallying around concepts or factions or things like that. So I think it'll be good, you know, to kind of set some ideas and get some thoughts out there. So anyways, I've blabbed on enough for the moment, so I will pass it on to one of you two, whichever one of you guys wants to jump in first, and just I guess soapbox a little bit, and just talk about, you know, personally what makes the game interesting to you.
Sale, go first. You never talk.
On the spot.
Yes, sir. Cool. So I guess the thing that hooked me most was in the very beginning was the fact that the devs seem to have very solid heads on their shoulders, both in terms of practical decision making and also in terms of actually being able to think about the kind of design decisions and theories that, you know, they're espousing and trying to effectively demonstrate with the game, which was super neat at the time. I was like, what? Like we're getting, you know, full dissertations on stuff, and the game is not even remotely playably released, and yet it has effectively proof of concepts, built into these, blogs of stuff, and I'm kind of amazed. And so that was the first thing. But then as I've gone on, I've realized that even more than that, the things that I'm interested in are the fact that the community in really any context can bring up properly controversial, and I don't just mean controversial in like MMO terms, like, oh no, there's going to be gear grind kind of controversial. I mean, like, actually ethically, morally controversial stuff. Like, for instance, the thread that came up off of an IRC discussion about, whether children and other NPCs of certain demographics were killable, or at least, whether we could aggress on them because, for instance, we all know that Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls games have a history of not permitting violence against kids and such. And so, I have a personal opinion on that, which is that, I'd rather just not have kids or, have a very segmented, specific, subset of the way that kids work to satisfy the thing to work. But I think the fact that people can even talk about it in the context of a game with some sincerity and without being shouted down immediately speaks both volumes for the potential of the game and for the fact that the community is really not being super, or rather is being super open to at least talking about stuff, which I think is super valuable.
The fun part of that for me is that in IRC when it came up, I think, was it Donut who was like, I'm going to post it in the forums, and everybody, no, do not do that, the forums are going to blow up, it's going to be so toxic, you can't do that. And he was like, no, let's give it a try. And then it was like, hey, people are actually discussing that nicely,
I won't lie, I was doomsaying on that. I was like, Donut, don't do it, dude, don't do it, we got to keep this in here, it's not safe. But it ended up being okay. It ended up being okay. So thank you, Donut, for having much more foresight than any of us. Yeah, but yeah, I think there are going to be other topics in that sort of ethical vein, both in terms of the raw text of the game, if you will, the actual mechanics of the game itself, but also in terms of the stories and such that players bring up over time by playing with each other, right? I mean, in the vein of sort of the EVE Online grand scams and betrayals and stuff like that, right? There will be, I think, similar courses of events that will have, relative degrees of ethical, detail to them, right? Things that people can look at and be like, maybe this wasn't a good thing or maybe this was, and they can talk about it then and parse it both in terms of design terms and personal terms and in game terms all at the same time, which I very much look forward to, if only because I'm rather partial to the idea of games as a medium, not strictly in like the casual sense, but really in like in a high art kind of way. Not all the time, right? Not all the time, but I think there are inroads for games to achieve the kinds of thought and the kinds of considerations that come from watching very intricate films or from reading books or from going to a Shakespeare play.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think are just very valuable to have the opportunity to do, and they just haven't quite got to that point yet because a lot of the technique is still being worked out, right? The actual technique of doing the thing, is still difficult. But I think once it's certain.
I'll jump in and counter a little bit. I think that really good games, there are some out there, some really good ones that do that. I would consider, there are some games already that I think really kind of set that tone already. So which is not to counter your argument, just a counterpoint to support your argument of, I think games are an art form when they're taken, when they're considered an art by the people making them. If the people making them consider them a higher form and want to inject a little bit more meaning into them and provoke a more thought-provoking experience. Totally possible with games. Like, all the tools exist to do that. and the, you know, it's been done before too. So I think that, you know, totally possible. I mean, the early Silent Hill games, really good story, really good experience, even though, you know, it was just like a horror video game. So pretty cool stuff, and you know, and there's others too I can name, but keep going. I didn't want to cut you off. I just wanted to jump in.
No worries,
Yeah.
and feel free to oppose me anytime, dude. We don't have to be all rainbows and unicorns, bro. Like, we can totally go fisticuffs. I've got the swashbuckle stash. If you want to pull out the duel, we can duel.
It'll never be that obvious when I'm opposed to you. I gotta undermine. Right. Passive.
It'll be capoeira. It won't be sword fighting. But yeah, and it's weird too, because I think games more so than other media. Well, I'm gonna hedge off books for this. Books and games in one category, but in other mediums, for instance, like I'm gonna say films or plays, you know, the player, if you will, or the viewer, right, the observer, the person some of the people experiencing the actual, you know, product or process are, you know, they're locked into it, right? Like, I mean, yes, you can get up and leave a concert if you so desire, right? You can leave in the middle of the Rite of Spring because the choreography is abhorrent to your tastes, and, you know, it can cause a riot. Everyone will think Stravinsky did it, but really it was the choreographer, right? But otherwise, you know, if you're sitting down and trying to actually work through a film, right, you're bound by time to sort of go for the full 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes, you know, 90 minutes to experience the thing, right? But games and novels, I think as well, literature, unfold over a much longer time, and the fact that that time exists allows for people to have very different colors that they bring to the experience of the thing over time, right? So like, you might wake up one day in something of a very perceptive or open feeling and be like, you know, today I want to think about things. And so you'll pick up a book and be like, man, I wanted to read this book, or I wanted to play this game, whatever it may be. Like, say I'm going to play Journey, right, from that one games company, or that games company guys, or some similar game that is relatively viewed for its artistic value beyond just its execution, right? You'd be like, you know, today I'm in a mood for this thing. And so you go and you open it up and you do it for an hour or whatever, and you're like, yes, I got something out of this, right? And so maybe you continue for the week to kind of log a couple hours, say 15 minutes reading the book, 15 minutes playing the game, right? Just as a habitual thing, because you want to keep going at the thing that you're doing, right? But then, you know, maybe later on in the week you get kind of busy, and so your mindset subtly shifts, right? You're a little bit frustrated. You're not quite as in the mood for really highfalutin stuff, but you're still willing to put in the time to go do, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's reading a book, assuming it's not, you know, one of those brutal William Gaddis things where it's beating you over the head and you can't actually read it unless you're in the mood to read it, or you know, similar. And so you sit there and you do it, but then that color actually changes, you know, what you're pulling out of the text or reflecting on at the fridge, and stuff like that, which is really vague and a little bit stupid in practice. But I like the idea that because games take place over a very large period of time, and especially MMO games or Meow games in this case, because they operate on a much longer time scale than the actual singular experience of a particular, you know, film or a particular piece of art, right? I mean, yeah, imagine looking at, you know, I guess because Envo likes it, imagine looking at the Magritte, you know, this is not a pipe thing, right, once, right? And so if you didn't have the internet or reproductive art books, right, you'd have basically a couple minutes or maybe an hour if you really wanted to sit down and do it, to look at this particular thing and try to pull something out of it, right? And so at that point, you're almost entirely based off of fridge logic, whereby with a game or with a novel, you have the option to go back and revisit things, or to just sit there in the experience of the thing for a while and try to do it, and yet you can still do that over hours and hours and hours. And I think just the raw time of that allows for certain kinds of perceptions or ideas to come out of the medium that wouldn't otherwise be there in a faster medium like a film, or a locked medium like a film. I don't know. That was really big and weird, and I want Snipehire to talk about this sometime. But by all means, come up with something much more sane because I'm in full mad scientist mode today. So.
Awesome.
Well, I got into Revival because, and I don't know, it's actually fairly interesting because some of my Activision buddies, I used to work for Activision back in the day, and right around late 90s, early 2000s, a group of them were playing some Lovecraftian horror games, and I just couldn't get into it because, you know, the best that you would hope for was that you ended the game insane. Like, why is that fun? Like, something bad is going to happen to you. That's not fun. There's no joy in an unhappy ending. But there's something about the Lovecraftian stuff that, I don't know, I think the bones of the game itself is so enchanting that I kind of ended up falling in love with Lovecraftian horror by checking out Revivalcast. Well, checking out Revivalcast, but also checking out Revival the game. And the draws for me are looking forward to an evolving world. I want to interact with NPCs whose lives evolve. I want to interact with the story that evolves. I don't want to save an NPC and then come back the next week and the NPC is still looking for help with the same quest that I finished with them the week before. Or they're just stuck. Now that I have helped them, they're stuck in that mode, whatever they're in, forever just tilling the land or whatever, and nothing else ever happens to them. I'd like to be able to come back to an NPC after a few weeks and see that they've married someone, or their mom died, or maybe the grandma got bitten by a werewolf and we've got to go save her, or whatever. I want to see this story evolving, so that's one of the big things that hooked me with Revival. And then there's just so much information. I mean, I felt overwhelmed by information in February when I first started. There's so much to learn, and it's, 9 months later, and still way too much information day by day and week by week. It's kind of crazy. I just think there's going to be a lot to do. I think there's going to be a lot of complexity. Choosing a god, the gods care about what we do. It's not just we choose a god and say, okay, this is what I like. We have to think about what the gods like, and they're going to be thinking about what we're doing and what they like and don't like too. That's going to affect us, what they like and don't like. Yeah, I just think there's going to be a lot of interaction. I think we're going to have to redefine the terms that we're used to using for traditional MMORPGs. I think they aren't going to quite apply in the same way that we've been used to. And RPGs in general, I think everybody knows one of the things that I'm really trying to wrap my brain around is how good, evil, lawful, and chaotic will be fitting into the paradigm of Revival, because I think it's going to be very different from what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, things both you guys have mentioned, I can easily go on about as well. But yeah, just for like me first getting into Revival, I through a couple guild, I was following. Actually, when I came across Revival, I was covering Daybreak Games and at the time SOE and Landmark, EverQuest Next, and I had literally spent the entire year of 2014. Yeah, all of last year basically, writing about it, and the year before, a lot of it too, covering it. And I got a chance to dig way deeper, I think, into what that game was trying to do than most people, just because I was on EQ Hammer, and that was my task, write about EverQuest Next, because they actually had a landmark kind of specific guy there. So he was kind of covering the landmark points. My managing editor was kind of, touching on everything, and I was really just digging into EverQuest Next. That was the niche I was trying to dig into. So I was digging into, how all these systems could come together that they were talking about, how the AI needed to, how it would work in this world, how it would need to work. So I really got to dive way deeper into mechanics than I ever did, which obviously, led to the creation of Theory Forge. That was originally just going to be an EverQuest Next live cast, revived with some of the previous casts from Into the Portal, I believe, and it ended up changing into something totally different, because I think all of us together that became the host of that show realized that this is, we love dissecting this stuff. So, Revivalcast is an offspawn of, that it's an evil offspawn of the Theory Forge mentality of, breaking down what these games are going to be about. And so, I came across Revival from a couple of my guildies. So those of you who have been following the show for a while will be familiar with Astral Echo, and those of you who have really been following the show for a long time would be familiar with Cicera, who was on for the first, I think the first several episodes. Yeah, and they kind of like led me to it, and very much more up their alley than mine as far as theme. I've never been a big horror fan, so like I had never read Lovecraft prior to Revival. So like Diggs, the lore has grown on me because of the game, which I think is a testament to both of those things. For me to even be attracted to this game, it would have to have some good sound mechanical concepts. So those are there, I think, definitely. And then, I would totally not be into this lore at all if it wasn't being done well. And I think it's being done well so far. Even just last week's blog was one of Omba's. It wasn't his first story-like blog, but it was one of the first purely about story blogs that he did. So, and that was a great little insight into how story's going to be told in this game, because I think last week was really that, hey, I'm going to tell a story right now, and it's not going to be necessarily to describe mechanics of the game or what have you. This was just, I'm going to tell you something that happens in this world. So it was pretty cool to see, and I thought it was done well. If you didn't get to see our episode on that, we talked about some of the nuances to that blog. It was pretty exciting, and I think for me that's a huge draw personally for this game. The ability for a game mechanically and narratively to pull me in, because one of I've talked about it a lot, probably on this show, a lot on Theory Forge. Diggs is probably going to be tired of hearing it yet again, but maybe you guys are too. But MMORPGs today, that term is empty. You're not massively multiplaying anything. You're single player, you're grouping up occasionally for some certain tasks, but no massively multiplayer, no social dynamics really. And the role-playing element, other than your role in combat, that's it. You don't have any other role in the world. You have a crafting role maybe, but for the people that are really into a game, they pretty much have an alt that's mastered the crafting in all professions, so they don't really need other people for that either. So this game is totally different. Already I see in the systems concepts, social dynamics, the way the world's going to evolve is going to have people react and view each other differently. There's going to be less information provided that you can just stereotypically, assess another person. You're going to have to key into things, pay attention to what they say. There's a lot more intrigue there. And then, that goes right into the combat too. Combat won't be the bread and butter of the game. There will be combat situations, there will be in-depth skill and combat progression for the people that are into that, but that's not all it's about. It is about telling a story, or at least persisting in this world, a totally different world, however you want to do that. So all those things are, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved, and this became apparent to me in February when we're reading about housing and we're first hoping to be able to buy our houses, is the idea of all of the hosts from Theory Forge having a room in a tenement and me being upstairs and walking downstairs over to Valix or Phantom X and borrowing a cup of sugar, or having a little get-together where we're having a card reading party and we have an astrologer who's going to read our fortunes for us. We know where everybody is, where we can know where our friends are living nearby in a city, drop in on them like we might if we were sharing the same city, and just, you know, sit down and have a meal, or sit down and look at the stars through the person's telescope. The day-to-day interaction is just going to be, I mean, it's like living in a world, and not just, I'm going in so I can fight some orcs and get some gear, and then get some gold so I can get some more gear. You can kind of have a day-to-day life, and that's with the player characters, but also with the non-player characters as well. Just that draw, I mean, that's just phenomenal. And then the horror stuff that can screw you over, that's scary.
Oh yeah, I think the truly unique element of this game, like, you know, we talk a lot about some of the things Revival's trying to do on Theory Forge and what they want to do mechanically and with systems, and I think they're doing a great job pursuing a lot of the things that we want to see in you know, a truly next-gen MMO. But that aside, you know, what makes Revival unique is, you know, the horror elements and the way they want to go about twisting the world. Because obviously the world's going to evolve, you know, there's going to be things that make it evolve. But Revival, what they're using to make this world evolve is pretty unique. You know, there's very few games out there that really operate in this kind of lore theme. You know, Age of Conan does a little bit. I mean, obviously it is that lore, but you know, they didn't really dive into too much of the truly like horror elements of it, which isn't a big, huge theme of Conan, but there are a lot of cool things if you dive into Conan lore that get pretty horrific and crazy, but it's just not usually the popularly covered angles. The Arnold Schwarzenegger, the movies there, you know, totally leave out a lot of what can be explored in there, in that element. But anyways, that aside, yeah, the horror elements really make it an interesting thing. You've got, like, you know, the Secret World operates, I believe, in the same theme as well. So there's a couple games out there, you know, you can peek into some of these games if you want a glimpse, but I definitely think the systems that Revival's doing and the commitment to the rule of world, which I think is probably the most important thing any new player needs to read about the game. I was reading about rule of world, and that will really set the tone for any other information you read about this game. So yeah, that's generally kind of the big draw for me.
I just want to jump in real quick
ahead
and touch on some of the other systems that, you know, are making me I don't know if you can get any more alcohol than I am with this game, but just certain ideas that you can play around with, like playing a transgender character or playing a 60-year-old character for once, and how that's going to affect your health, hygiene, this the stank stat. There's so many little nuances that just exploring all these different options that we're going to have that I just haven't experienced in other games is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think just to build on what you're saying there, Diggs, you know, it's important that people realize, you know, if Revival sounds ambitious, that's because it is, but also too, there is a method to their madness, unlike a lot of other games that are just, you know, creating off of the traditional model and trying to plug additional features on and make this huge beast. You know, you can look at Star Citizen for kind of a crazy example of that, but I think Revival, the developers are a bit more focused on what they want to achieve, and the systems are, you know, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of crazy stuff, but these are small systems that are just built to interact with one another. So a bunch of small systems that are going to, you know, be a bunch of moving ping pong balls on a table, basically, and create this chaotic world of Revival. So there's a method to the madness, but hopefully we won't be able to figure the method out if it's done, you know, the way the developers are hoping. I think keeping the world unpredictable, keeping a lot of information concealed, letting some of the systems have a ton of question marks into how they operate is going to be key to this game's, you know, the horror feel coming to life and a lot of things like that. So, but I don't want to dive too much into some questions that I'm going to be asking Ombwa for part 2 of the interview. Which, if you didn't see that on 10 Ton Hammer, I did posted it in IRC and on the forums, so you guys can check that out. But yeah, I'm going to be continuing to dive into back and forth with Ombwa on that. But I did, you know, while we were talking about all this, I thought of another idea as well, kind of spawning off of today, you know, this past week's forum topics and kind of the theme of today's show. So I kind of want, it's like kind of like a Revivalcast homework assignment for you guys. So what I want is to, if you guys have the time, obviously it's not forced or anything, but I want you to send me an email with your personal kind of why Revival. And I'm going to kind of build these into, you know, pull some quotes from everybody and build this into a, you know, why the Revival community likes Revival. Because I feel like, you know, the game now, we've got the decoration tool, we're moving closely into stage 2, and with, you know, as much as is starting to get offered, I think it's getting to the point where, you know, people are going to start taking notice, and, you know, having especially once the patcher comes out, and it's a lot easier for the people who are founders to, you know, just open up the game and see what it's offering at first. I think a lot of people are going to actually start looking at it. So I think that, you know, representing the community would be great. You know, so if I can use my platform to, you know, share what you guys are thinking about the game, why you like the game, why you love it, definitely do it if you can, because I think this game has a unique community, you know, and I felt that way a lot about the EverQuest Next community, but this one feels even tighter, more open-minded. Might have to do with the lore and the theme, I don't know. I think it's hard to be closed-minded with this type of game. If you're closed-minded, there's a lot of things about this game that are just going to send you away. So, because, you know, there's a lot of tricky things, you know, a lot of sensitive issues because of the mature theme, a lot of stuff like that. So, definitely an interesting, and the way, plus that too, with the way the community's handled it, talking about a lot of those topics, very well done. So, you guys should get, I think it'd be cool to share, you know, some of the insight from the community. So if you guys want to take that little homework assignment and do it, I'll drop my email in the chat in a second here. But yeah, that's kind of like the big thing that I was just thinking of when we were talking. But yeah, so I don't know, that's kind of like my soapbox and Diggs and Sailkite. But again, like, the whole point of the show is not necessarily to tell you why or answer the question for you. I want you guys to consider why for yourself. I like everybody in the community, so, you know, you could start a thread topic about it, talking about, I mean, just whatever you want to do with it, but definitely send me an email, because I want to actually make something out of what the community thinks as a whole. So the more I get, the better. That actually kind of worries me to say, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are really good with words, and it's going to be really hard to like pull from them.
Don't send him an email.
Yeah, you two are exempt. I
don't have the words. I don't have the words to spare. I don't have the words to spare. So I don't. I need all those. I'm being greedy. I'm hoarding them.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. That's kind of like that's it for me. I mean, I could say more, but I don't feel like I need to.
One thing that we haven't stressed enough, we can't stress enough, is one of the things that keep us here is the interaction with the devs.
Oh, that's great to point out at the end of the show, because, you know, typically at the end of every show we have audience Q&A, but I feel like every time we get to one of those, like, there's no questions hardly left that either the developers haven't answered, or yeah, it's really difficult to have an audience Q&A when you've got all the developers in there answering all the questions for the audience. So we do totally appreciate that. Thank you guys for always hanging out here. And I say always because I can't think of a single show where there hasn't been at least one of you guys in here talking to, you know, the community and answering questions. So we really appreciate that. I did pull 2 questions actually. Let me make sure that they're ones that weren't answered. I think I did see Mother Rabbits about the loom got answered, I saw. But Blood Dragon asked, is there a way to tell how much exterior decorating space a priority has right now, aside from whether it has an associated farm, or is that something that will get added later, closer to stage 2? So exterior was the question, which is really kind of directed towards the developers. I don't think we can really answer that. But
yeah, Snipe did. I don't recall what his answer was, and it might have gone out of my chat log range. But I did see that he answered.
Okay, good. Yeah. So for anybody watching this, perhaps on YouTube, I do post this up on YouTube. And if you're catching it there's a live discussion. The community's in here, really active all the time, and the developers are here. So if you have a question about the game, other than going directly to the forums there, coming here is probably your next best option, I would say, if you want to interact without becoming a founder. Maybe if you want to know about the game and you're not really ready to make the commitment to be a founder, I think a big thing about Revival is there's
purchasing a house, by the way.
Yeah. There's no pressured sale here. There's nothing available that you can buy now that you wouldn't be able to buy later, I guess would say. There's no exclusivity to it. Anything you can, it's not like you're missing out if you don't buy now and support now, which I think a lot of games do, but Revival's developers have chosen not to do thus far, which is really cool. So if you don't feel like you're ready to commit yet, come hang out with us here, learn more about the game, ask the developers some questions, because you might not get, like we said, the forums are crazy. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions that the developers would love to answer, but they might not see in the forums because there's literally too few of them and so much going on. It's probably only going to get busier. So come on the show here, hang out in our chat, and maybe eventually our chat will get so busy that they can't even answer then. But I think that'll be a good thing. It'll mean the community's active, healthy, and interested. Because I like to think this show represents the community in some extent. One thing we're trying to do is get a new person in every week. So for those of you that do email me actually with what brings you about Revival, if you're interested in coming on the show, tag that on to the end. Let me know that you're interested, and then I know where to reach out to too, because I am reaching out every week a little bit to a few people, but obviously I don't want to spam everybody, and sometimes the people I reach out to aren't available. But I don't want to always bring the same people on and make it feel like it's the same group. But yeah, so if you're interested in coming on, let us know, and I'd like to rotate more community members in so that people watching the show will get an idea of some of your personalities that they might not get to see if they're not in IRC, and not able to read some of your stuff on the forums. So yeah, all of that. So, but yeah, that's it for our show today. I'm going to go ahead and sale digs. Do you guys have anything additional, any last minute things or stuff that I forgot to say?
Not really. I think you covered. I was really happy to see the new faces in, or the new voices in the forums. I'm hoping, and we should talk with Snipe and Ombwa, but I was thinking it might be nice once we get our hands on the decorating tool to have Figment on and talk about props.
I definitely agree. That would be good. I will be reaching out to him as well too then. So we will try to get him. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, go ahead, and I'll dovetail in the end.
Oh, I was just gonna close us out, so you better go then.
Okay. Yeah. But in all serious though, other opinions and perspectives are super good, which is part of why the forums are so awesome to jump into every day. If you want to talk on the show, we'd totally love to hear you. Just period. We love talking to people in chat. So by all means, take Belix up on his offer. Do it. Do not wait. I'm giving the full infomercial pitch right now. Get on this show so we can talk. There are a lot of cool people with a lot of cool ideas, and I would love to get the chance to hash it out live with folks. So,
yeah,
totally do it.
It's definitely not one of those things that we're just saying. We want to have different people and get different people's opinions out there. So yeah, so that's it for us. Thank you guys for coming. For those of you guys who you guys are dedicated, because I did not give a lot of notice. Just a couple days that we were going to be an hour early. So if you're just now tuning in, why is Revivalcast ending? Why are they closing out? We started an hour early this week. I had some things come up, and I asked the other guys if they could move it up a week if that was fine, and they were able to. So it really helped me out. But yeah, we should be right on our normal time next week at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Mountain for everybody that's lucky enough to be in the best state in the United States, in Colorado. But no, I'm just kidding. But it is the best. We'll catch you guys all next time. Next week we'll have probably
weather. We'll be talking about weather.
Yes, and weather systems. I'm pretty excited about that. I've talked about it a couple times. I dug into it a little bit on my interview with Snipe Hunter on 10 Ton Hammer, which is pretty old, but all still relevant if you want to look at that. But yeah, thank you guys. I'm going to drop my email in the chat for you guys to send me your thoughts and stuff like that. But yeah, again, thanks so much, and we will see you next week. Ta-ta.
Take care. And sorry, Rose.
What was Rose's question?